Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Hearts of Iron 4 Formable Nation. Today we are going to be tackling Arabia, a formable nation that's actually been in the game for quite some time, so why oh why are we returning to this nation today? Well, as with my last video, we took a look at Operation Knee. Today we're looking at Operation Shoulder 1.16.4 because there have been some interesting changes. Armoured cars, for example, have seen some significant buffs. What is that? 2.5 times the strength over, and IC cost being shrunk down across the board. But beyond that and a series of other changes, that's not really why I'm here. Down here in gameplay, we can see two formable nations have been reworked, the Great Indonesia formable nation and Arabia. It is because of us wanting to form Arabia that this video will be exploring just how they have reworked it. So back to OI4. With the changes that have come towards Arabia, I think maybe it's time to take a look at one extremely easy way to form this rather old formable nation. Starting the game in 1936, our country of choice is going to be Oman. I suppose I should say the Sultanate of Muscat and Oman, coming in with new localization and many new states. What, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4? My goodness. Let's take a look. Sometimes it feels like the old paths have changed, but have also stayed the same. And it's kind of true coming in with Oman, which previously was independent, but now isn't. Is a puppet of the United Kingdom. This is nothing to worry about though, because it doesn't stop that Arabia has been changed. In order to unite the Arabian Peninsula, we need to own basically all the states of Oman, which we have, Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Luckily, Saudi Arabia and Yemen currently aren't owned or puppeted by anybody, at least in this version of the game, so this should be more possible than impossible. So let's get through how we can do it. First off, we're going political effort, pretty traditional, and we should probably start by building up some industry. In an interesting choice, I think I'm actually going to start off by researching destroyers. Yeah, not typical for this kind of playstyle. And away we go. Perhaps more unique than anything, Oman has a unique decision to restore order to the interior because the individual state of Oman can actually be released. Political effort done and straight into a communist advisor. Previously, this would probably be a time that I'd want to go fash, but militarism and military youth have been nerfed. We live in modern times and we must adapt with them. My research continues to be a little bit odd with naval gunnery being a priority, but that's okay, because we now have more than 10% for communism, meaning we can of course prepare for a civil war, which we will be doing. Working our way down internationalism focus, we're slowly heading our way down to, where is it? Indoctrination. Weekly manpower plus 400. If that isn't the key to playing miners in the current year, I really don't know what is. Basic machine tools, naval gunnery, wonderful. The real question is, would it be dumb for me to want to pursue these new interwar armoured cars? They do have movement speed on desert. That might come in handy. I guess in the meantime we should probably focus on what actually matters. So as I just sit here completing focuses, you may think, well, he's at 41% stability, he should have enough political power to go, I could just start the civil war right now. And you're right, I could, but I'm not going to. There are some focuses, 2 to be precise, that I want to get before I start. Industrial effort is one of them. Also, the manpower situation is going far better. Industrial effort complete, and the final focus to take, naval effort. We were of course going to have to take this at some point, considering our first technology was to do with boats. Speaking of which, I should probably get myself a tech to do with boats. Transport ships. Very important. And so we have come to the pivotal day. Naval effort is on 69 out of 70 days. This is the moment when you should begin your civil war. The reason for this is actually quite simple. It also means that your opponent, the other Oman, is also going to be doing naval effort with a few days remaining. There he is, still doing the same focus. So once the tick happens, both me and him will have just got 3 dockyards. You can actually check this for yourself. once you have some information on them, to see that they'll gain free. The reason for going after these dockyards, I guess now, is all too obvious. Because of the way the states have changed in Oman, you're going to have to naval invade all the way over here. Yeah, they really did change the way this country plays. The People's Republic of Oman. I guess Muscat got thrown in the toilet. At least now we can spawn our one division and prepare ourselves for a naval invasion. Oh, and in case you were wondering, there are the dockyards. We can see 2 to 4, which is code word for free. Additionally, being the communist we now are, we can take ideological loyalty for 500 additional manpower on top of our previous 400 to get 900 per week. Things can really snowball from here. With naval tech complete, we can now start assigning some units towards our landing operation. But again, there's actually no desire to do it, because what I want to happen is for my enemy to keep building up factories. Every factory that they build is going to be a factory that I own when I naval invade them. So waiting can actually be the best strategy. Getting an invader on my first roll. Don't mind if I do. To be honest, at this point I wish there was more to show you. I really am just completing all of my industry focuses and kind of hoping my opponent does the same thing before I invade them. So I guess this is going to be a time skip until that happens. Alright, you know what? I think that's probably good enough. Let's begin by actually working towards Arabia. The justification has to begin at some point, so let's begin now. 215 days, about the outbreak of World War II. Make sure we have naval supremacy. They're blocking the strait because I can't believe it. And away my soldiers go, to the capital of Musandam. They still have a legacy unit I didn't delete from earlier, but it's not going to be a problem. I'd say they're doing okay on farming experience. Again, I wasn't necessarily worried. I'd say that's one. And the claim of our spoils. Oh, they didn't get the final military factory built. Never mind, I'd say that's a pretty good take for simply leaving our opponent to build up. Alright, finally a production queue I can actually agree with for once. With 61 convoys, I'm pretty sure I don't need to keep building too many more convoys. I think we're taking Grand Battle Plan. Maybe not the greatest for many people, but we're going to be needing to do some entrenchment. So much so, in fact, I might actually build some fortifications along this line. It might seem a little bit extreme, but there's nothing wrong with taking precautions. Okay, the lines seem to be making themselves looking pretty good so far. A large collection of naval invasions is going to be a secret strat to get in, but our economy, yeah, that needs to be demobilized. I'm just wondering, hypothetically, if I was to turn off my final trade, I would have 5 civs. Can I then create an agency, just any old agency, it doesn't matter, and then demobilize our economy? Oh yes, it does work. So even though we were getting the maximum amount of power out of our factories, we then switched over to form an agency, which we shouldn't really be allowed to use. And there goes the justification. Okay, this is probably going to be a tremendous amount of microwing while making sure they don't push through my front line. In total, they have how many units? Maybe 8 or 9? So the majority are going to be here, with 3 in the back line. With the final preparations basically complete, I don't think I have too much more to worry about. We can just begin the declaration. Initially, they have sent 6 units here to push through this single tile. This seems to be consistent, but it's of course worth remembering that they really don't have much more than 6 units, maybe 3 spread around the back line. So if 6 of their units are trapped down here, we really want to keep them trapped here as our naval invasions work around the coast. Speaking of unit number 7, hiding away over here. On the west coast, our first horse has landed down. The goal is going to be take as much land as possible, as anywhere that you can. On the east coast, our main invasions have just started. Hopefully something positive comes of them. Okay, taking Medina, working our way up the rest of the coast. We might be okay for naval landings in Dammam. Yes, we are. Perfect. Because we started with the west coast invasions, they usually try and station this port, but if there's bigger problems on the west coast, they're going to go deal with the west coast. Halfway there, basically haven't done too much. Okay, we took the capital. That's pretty big, and it's actually a very good offensive. Oh. Oh. Yeah, with naval invasions, that conflict can be pretty straightforward. I guess we should start justifying on Yemen then. The justification is complete. Good news. Luckily, I don't see any reason to delay. So, what's the strategy for dealing with Yemen? Well, whereas previously we wanted to hold back Saudi Arabia, we now want to not hold back Yemen and allow them to swamp into the desert. We've set up a defensive line to hold the west coast. I don't particularly want to lose the holy city, but they can have the sand. I hate sand. Meanwhile, Iraq just instantly joined the Axis and is now at war with the Allies. Huh, that was a pretty rapid change in the north. Okay, their units seem to have mostly swarmed into the desert by now. I, because of this, have set off my naval invasions to come around the back. We might even be able to cut them off. Oh. Oh, they didn't even defend the capital. Good lord. Very easy strategies, but important, because sometimes you can get yourself bogged down fighting in mountains. The key is to just not fight, right? With that final action done, I think it's time for the final button. Arabian unification, unite the Arabian Peninsula. Boop. With the Omani conquest of most of the Arab Peninsula, the government has seized upon a renewed wave of pan-Arabism. Very cool to see. And it does give you cores on the Arabian Peninsula, which is owned currently by the United Kingdom. So this is a really good change that came from the new patch. So much like I did with the Sikh achievement, I am going to stop and talk now very briefly about something that I think could use a change. And it's not to do with the decisions. I think the decisions are mostly fine. The issue is Iraq. As you noticed, and I mentioned earlier, Iraq just suddenly flipped ideology and instantly got involved in a war, literally at the outbreak of World War II. I've set my game on historical Iron Man. Something tells me this shouldn't happen. I'd also like to add that, as we can see with Arabia, but this also happens with Iran and with Turkey, because Iraq is perma-guaranteed and then perma in a faction, there's never any opportunity to basically invade it if you're not one of the major powers. This is a rather unfortunate change from how things used to be, because there was quite a lot of fun to be had playing in this region, as nobody was guaranteed and nobody was going to get into any conflict, but that's all changed. If I was going to make a slight suggestion, a kind of rework, it would be nice if sometime around the start of 1939 until late into 41, there is no guarantee on Iraq and they're not in any faction. This basically means there is a good 2 years for any surrounding nation to quickly get in there if they need to for their focus tree, otherwise they will be propelled into a global conflict. Hopefully, finding a way to implement this change could make this both more historical than whatever's happening here, and it would mean that we can begin to integrate the Fertile Crescent and continue our expansion northwards. But as it stands right now, we're basically locked in with a war between the Axis and the Allies, so there are no friends to be made here, and at that point you're just going for a kind of a world conquest. But my goal was to show off the new patch which allows you to form Arabia, and it is very easy to do so as Oman. If you're wanting to, you could definitely do so as Saudi Arabia and get yourself into a conflict with the Allies, and I'm sure there's more you could do here as well. With that being said, thank you very much for watching. If you liked this short foray, then please feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and long live Oman! Bye.